Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Industry Insight podcast. I'm your host, Bobby. Today, we welcome editor Evelyn Rack, who joins us to talk about their work on Sound of Falling. Evelyn will talk us through her experience of cutting a non-linear, multi-generational film. Please be warned that there are heavy spoilers in this episode. Now let's jump into the conversation with Evelyn. Hi Evelyn, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
We're here to sit down and talk about Sound of Falling, which I managed to get a screener recently, thanks to Daria Vilk, who helped facilitate that all. Shout out to Daria. How have you found the reception to the film?
I mean, it was quite incredible. We premiered in Cannes this year in the competition, and it was just like it felt to all of us like a miracle because we were this kind of edgy film on a low budget or on a very tight budget from Germany. And it was so many years that the last film, that the last German production was in the competition in Cannes. And then we were screened there on the first day of the festival, the first film of the competition. And it felt just so surreal because the time that we got accepted to Cannes, we had no distributor on board and no world sales. So it was really like under the radar of everyone. And when we left the cinema, we just opened our phones and we read this headlines, this sensation of Cannes, and we felt a bit like in a fairy tale. And it's that it doesn't stop. So now we are we're there for the Academy Awards as Best Foreign Film, and already had a cinematic release in Germany, and it will be in January in the US. And we are still blown away. We didn't expect this to happen.
I think sometimes it's just those are the best surprises, right? In the way that things are just sort of play out, and the fact that like the film didn't have distribution, and that's probably quite scary for us, like a director and producer going into a film festival. It's probably exciting as well because people can see it and decide if they want to buy it, but then also it's kind of scary because it's like there's no fallback plan.
Yeah, I mean, we had them when we were premiering in Cannes, but submitting the film and being accepted in Cannes, we did without distributor on board or without a sales agent. So it was like a blind submission there. So we were already paired with MK2 when we premiered in Cannes, and then while being there, Mubi went on board for the US as well as the UK as a distributor. Yeah, but it's a film. I mean, you watched it. It's a film that is doing so many things different that is usually how you usually would do a film. And it was also in the making when Masha and Louise were co-writing the script. It was not the easiest way to finance it because people were always like doubting that a film at all will be appearing in the end. So and now it's the first film from Germany that won a main prize in Cannes for 4 decades. So it's really mind-blowing.
I think the first part about winning the award, first German film in 4 decades, that must be like a weird feeling because it's like being the first film in so long. It probably feels like when the German film gets submitted, you probably feel like they're cursed and they're not going to win. But now that the curse is broken, it's
maybe
could open more floodgates,
Probably. We will see what future brings.
But then also when you're mentioning about like the style of the film and talking to financiers about how you're going to bring it all to life, because it's a film that juggles multiple timelines, and it does ask a lot from your audience in terms of when you're watching it and how you need to be sort of like take it in and really pay attention to what's happening, because you're going through different timelines. And sometimes, I think as audience members, especially like nowadays, you can lose focus because our attention spans are not that great, and that's all down to sort of like internet. But with something like this film, I found that when you're involved in like so many different timelines, representing different time periods, I feel like you're a bit of a fly on the wall in just what these people's lives are like, and it gives you such a different like perspective in things. And as an editor, like, where do you begin in structuring the film like this and thinking about how you're gonna cut each timeline together and then sort of merge them into one film?
Mm-hmm. I mean, what we first did was really just went through the timeline, editing all the scenes as finely as we were able to edit them, because we felt like it's like each scene is working like a small short film on their own. So when we were through with all the scenes, we did colored index cards, like you would with it. Yeah, it was like an editing process, more or less like an edit, like for a documentary film. So we had like one color for each timeline and one card for each scene. Yeah, so we just started by, so the first rough cut we did, based on the script order of the script, of the scene order of the script. And we knew beforehand, already before the shooting, we were talking about we will need to rearrange all the scenes and really restructure the film in the editing, because the script already had this attempt of drawing you and pulling you emotionally into it, like to really engage you in all the emotions. And to recreate this feeling in the film, we felt like we will need to rearrange everything, because how a scene will feel and what emotions it will evoke can't really be predicted by writing it down, because reading is, you perceive information differently when you just read something instead of watching it. So we knew we're gonna have to rearrange everything, and then we had our colored index cards, and from arranging it in the way the script worked, we found out, okay, in the script, the four timelines were interwoven from the beginning quite intensely, and we felt like there's so much going on, and you have no time to arrive somewhere, and you have no time to really connect with the protagonist and to be able to dive into their perspectives, that we felt like, okay, we really need to slow everything down. We need to give time and space and situations where we as viewers, or where the audience is able to really connect with the protagonist and really arrive in the film and really get into the perspective of one of the protagonists. So we decided that it felt like we have to start with Alma, the girl from the 1910s, and really to just enter the house with her and to spend time with her. And she's walking around the whole building, so we can experience the space together with her, but also her so-called conflict is quite easy to grasp. So she is, there's a party that the family is celebrating, and it's kind of this ritual thing where you think about the deceased people in your families. And she's there's one picture of a dead child, of a little girl, and she really looks like herself. And so she's really curious about this. There were these photographs taken of deceased people in the beginning of the century. So she's really perplexed by this image of this dead child, and seeing herself in this child, and she's like fascinated by death and also afraid of death. At the same time, she's playing with her sisters, and they are having fun and they're having a good time. So we felt like it's like a really good starting point to dive into this whole world of Sound of Falling and this building with our protagonist Alma. Still, it felt like it's important to set as well another tone in the beginning, and it also did not feel right just to start with a really long sequence with Alma in the 1910s. It needed a bit like this offset tone that we found in the character of Erica. She's the woman from the 1940s, and there's a scene where she's walking with just one leg on crutches in the hallway, and she is visiting her uncle, and he's just having a leg, like one leg, and she's going there and observing him. And already with this scene in the beginning, this theme of gaze. So she is looking at him, and then she's drinking, like she's putting her finger in his belly button, and there is like sweat, and she's tasting his sweat. And then she's called by her older brother, and she's going to the yard, and her brother is hitting her, and then she's looking directly into the camera. So we felt like, wow, there is this really offsetting tone and already breaking the fourth wall. It introduced so well the world that we felt like, okay, we have to start with Erica. She's setting the tone, and then we can go to stay for a really long time with Alma in the 1910s and to arrive in this world. And then from there, everything slowly evolved. So in the script, it worked more in a way where it needed like a starting point for everything to start. So the idea also already in script writing was to create the whole film as an emotional experience or a physical experience that feels like an ancestral collective stream of consciousness, like a memory that all of the characters have from a million years ago. And this was kind of the key for us. So in the script, the script started with what is now the end of the film. So the script started with Alma from the 1910s on the field, and there was heavy wind, like a storm, and she sees her older sister Leah flying, and she would start flying together with her. And at the same time, there would be like a parallel editing with Nellie from the 2020s. So it was really like flashy beginning. And we just like felt like, how would like memory work? It felt like in the script it worked beautifully, but in the film it really didn't play out. So we felt like memory would work in a way more or less where maybe it starts at some really small, maybe kind of innocent point, and then everything is unfolding from there. So that was our kind of guiding principle for organizing the timelines and for organizing the characters to one another. This idea of what memory would emerge from what, and what would trigger what. So it should feel like the whole film should feel like a big collective memory. Yeah, maybe like this.
There's a lot to dissect from your answer, but so I think I'll start from, we were mentioning about how building the sort of timeline by using color-coded cards and then sort of playing around with that. I think you made a really interesting point as well, as like how scenes can read different to what they are actually portrayed on a screen as well. And I can imagine that when you have these cards and you're reading those scenes and then you're watching the scenes, that they could feel not necessarily polar opposite, but kind of maybe not work in the order that you're thinking of. So then you kind of have to rearrange it again. I'm kind of just picturing it, part of it being like a Rubik's Cube. You move one side, then it's like the other side's a bit funny. So then you have to move it again. And then it will take a bit of time to get it all together. Just because like editing a film takes a lot of time and it's quite delicate as well. So you don't want to create too many problems for yourself in the future when you're trying to push it back in as well. Going on as well with when you're talking about where you're starting and then taking stuff from the film. So how you would have the ending of the film actually at the beginning and so on. Where would you begin on those sort of moments? Because when you're with the director, they probably have a vision of how the film's going to be like. How are those early conversations sort of brought up, and how do you convince them to actually maybe we should try it this way rather than how it's been written?
Mm-hmm. So the good thing was that already when they were writing the script, Masha and Louisa, the scenes were shifting around constantly. So we were on the same page from the beginning to really have this documentary style approach in the editing, which was good because we were not. So for us, the script the script is so brilliant. It delivers exactly what the film is delivering now. So we knew to get to this feeling that the script evokes, really the film has to take a different path. So we were on the same page from the beginning. So we had really abstract conversations. We were talking about how we ourselves perceive memory, how we remember, how do we feel when something comes up, because it was the only thing we could rely on, because there were no templates for what we were doing. So there's no film that I know so far that has a narrative structure and an approach like this film has from a dramaturgical point of view. So we just had ourselves and our instincts and our perception to rely on. And yeah, that being said, we felt like we could have, the way you framed it, it's like a big Rubik's Cube. It's like we had this 90 scenes, it's around 90 scenes, and they were like this 90 cards. And yeah, we felt like, in a documentary film, you maybe have 180 hours of footage and you have a potential of, 500 scenes. And from there you can start shaping. But we knew we want all of it to be in the film. So this 90 scenes had to fit precisely to one another. And as you said, when you just change the position of two scenes, it affects everything. So it was a big challenge and also a big task. And the good thing was that from the get-go and from the beginning, we were totally excited for the journey ahead. So luckily, we were not afraid about this big task. We were really, we were excited, and we were also curious, and we were, really, we were so curious to find out more about this world and about the characters and how everything could work together. So we would start like building, like you would maybe, like when you have a big puzzle with maybe 2,000 or 5,000 pieces, you would start somehow to rearrange small islands maybe. So I think we worked more like, okay, we have 2 or 3 scenes. When we put them together, they create something that we feel like is going into a direction we want the film to move forward to. So we tried to find out more, let's call it maybe laws, or that this universe that we wanted to create is functioning like. And by learning these laws, we could apply them to the materials. So we learned quite early on that we to make a time jump, it needed really two scenes needed to be really they needed to have like the same kind of energy, and it should be in the same room or in the same surrounding. It should have a similar energy, and ideally it would be same time of the day. So it was easy. The first noticeable time jump that we did was when Alma in the 1910s, she's lying in bed with her sister, and they are talking about Alma's asking her, what happens when you are dead? And so she's totally occupied in this idea about dying, and she's afraid, basically. She's afraid, and she has this really unsettling feeling of, I don't know what could all happen to me. And then there's we do the first time jump, and we jump to the 2020s, and it's also at night, and also all of them are sleeping except for the parents, and the parents are having sex, and it's dark. And then Nellie, the girl from the 2020s, she's having a nightmare, and she's screaming and crying, heavily crying. So we felt like, okay, this works out beautifully because we have this nightmare, and it fits good with Alma's fear of dying. And also it was night, and also it was just like people sleeping, like basically so simple. So we were looking for connections that worked beautifully like this, to have like a starting point to build more and more, and to find more connections within the footage.
I think there's a point as well, like the transitioning between the two different timelines and different time periods. And it's funny as well, like I didn't really, I did think about this, but it's also something that is interesting, is like the different timelines probably represent various different points of history in Germany, like World War I, World War II, being under sort of Soviet ruling as well, part of Germany as well. So that'll probably play a whole big part in the story, in the way that you sort of wanted to present each one as well with it, because there's always, I guess, when I'm sure like you could really go into things more like politically and how things sort of change, or maybe not change as like sort of years pass in general. When it came to different time periods, do you ever think of maybe changing the editing style a little bit to maybe match what that time period is like, or did you always want to keep it in the same sort of style?
I think the idea is, in general, for the film, and it applies also to the sound and to the imagery, to create this feeling of simultaneity and of all the times, and also to kind of the absence of time. So the images, they have the same aesthetic style. So there's not another look on another timeline or on another era. And also the sound design deliberately plays with these sounds of nature, where the flies are sounding the same in the 1910s like they do in the 2020s, and the wind sounds the same. So there are all these nature sounds, and the nature sounds are binding everything together. So we wanted to create this feeling of everything is happening kind of at the same time, as if time would be absent. And so I think there might be, the styles of the scenes there's different editing styles to different scenes, but this different style comes more from what is our main character that we are with at that time of the film going through. So for example, when we have Alma playing a prank with her sisters in the 1910s, the energy of the girls and the energy of the scene is totally different, and the way that maybe Alma as a character would remember this scene is totally different from, for example, when she is remembering how her great-grandmother died, and she's kind of in a fever dream. So just the state of mind of the character is different, so the editing style is different. And this also applies to sound and image as well. So we have sometimes these grainy images, and we have them in all the time layers. So when memory gets blurry, the image also becomes more blurry. Or we have these noises, these really deep sounds, and they sound like from outer space. It's also when memory becomes more blurry. Or we have this this sound and they apply in the same way to all the time layers.
Okay. Again, it's just more, it was just interesting to hear about the different timelines and how it could be used and how you could present them in a story as well. I don't know, just I do quite like it. I do like the idea and how story is presented and over the sort of multiple timelines. What I'm also curious to know about is like the use of voiceover and how you can play with the the imagery of it all, because you can kind of, I guess as an editor, you can play around with audience to sort of like, you can blur the line between like memory and imagination. But going with like the voiceover, how did the idea of voiceover come about? Just because I guess in films, I guess what you mentioned, it was already with the documentary aspect, and documentaries, there could be a lot of voiceover usage. Is that something that played in a part of it, or was that something that kind of came about in a different way?
So the voiceover was already part of the concept in the script. So, but in the editing, we used the voiceovers from the script as first ideas or first attempts or first layouts. And while we were editing the voiceovers, of course, we needed also to reshape and to rewrite them. So what we would mainly do is, for example, edit a scene and try to get to this heart and core of a scene. And I have, like, in my editing studio also a setup where you can directly record voices into the editing program. So what Masha did, she improvised sometimes to the footage, improvising voiceovers. So we were playing a lot with this. Also, at one point, we invited like Angelica from the 1980s. She's just living around the corner, so she came by and we worked on voiceovers with her in the editing room and recorded them so that we could work with them already in the editing. And also with the voiceovers, it's so interesting because they also evolve throughout the film. So first voiceover is Alma from the 1910s, and she is just talking about her mom, and that her mom always pretends not to having problems, but everyone knows that she has problems with her stomach, and that they have this game with earning blinks from her mother. Yeah, so this is this really more commentary voiceover in the beginning, and it becomes more and more immersive and more about really the desires and the fears of the protagonists. For example, when in the scene with Angelica, where she's laying on a swing and she's reflecting on her life and on her body and on her heart, and she really wants her heart to stop, and the heart would just not obey, and it would just like go on beating. And yeah, like it was in this scene, the voiceover developed so much from the beginning, and how the characters would be able to articulate their inner lives and their feelings and their memories and how they felt, and till the end of the film.
With like the voiceover, because you're saying you have the system in your edit suite, are there moments where you can kind of play around with what the tone of a voiceover might sound like, in terms of just the way that, I guess it could be like a first run through of putting it in with director and then actually getting the actors in to then be like, this is the kind of vibe that we're going for? Or was it a case of like there was always like an understanding of how it should be presented?
I think it was both. So it was like first, Masha and I were thinking about really just like also by intuition, how would this feel like, how would it sound like? And it was really good that until the end of the final mix, there were still recordings of voiceovers, and then we would meet Masha Billy. She's also she's the junior editor of this project. So she joined us in the editing process, and she's also the sound designer. So we would meet again, opening the editing program, and we would choose together the voiceovers, and we would place them, and then send them back to the mixing studio. And then it was like all the time till the end of the film. Of the finishing of the film, we were working on the voiceovers and working with the characters and shaping them till the end.
Okay, interesting. I guess as well, like being in the edit, you could play around with things a bit more and kind of work with things and sort of experiment a lot more. And I can imagine that can be quite fun because you can see how things might change a little bit more. Or how your scene can play out.
Oh, Robert, I think I lost you.
Sorry, no, I think I finished that. I thought you were going to add to it. My mistake. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, but definitely like this being involved till the end of the project, which is not common in Germany at all. So you picture like a film, and then you're gone. You're off the project. So it was really nice to be able to be involved until the end, to really go also to the final stages of mixing, to be involved in the voiceovers, to be also involved in the translation of the film into the subtitles, to also recheck them. Is it exactly how we feel this German should be translated into English? It was really it's not common in Germany, but I think it's so important to be with the director until the end of the whole process.
And when you have, so just going to like doing the sort of subtitle process of it all, because it's, again, like I can imagine that sometimes if something's like auto-generated, it could be lost in translation, or certain words might not be correct. How do you go about like sort of overseeing the subtitle process and making sure that the translation is as close as possible and that there's nothing lost in translation?
Yeah, good question. So I think that a lot of people are, I mean, we found mistakes or things that were not as precise until the end. We also had to work with subtitles while working, because in the 1910s there is like this old German, which I can't understand it. It's quite different from the German that is spoken nowadays. So we worked already with subtitles on that. Yeah, I feel like German is the language that needs a lot of words, and English is more compact. It's more condensed, which is good for subtitling because you can say more in less letters. And I think it's just about like rereading them and rechecking them, and then watching a scene, watching the film. Is it the rhythm? Is the language aligning with the way the characters would say it? Yeah, more like this.
Yeah, and mentioning like the older German and how not understanding it, will that affect the way that you might edit and think about the scene if you've had to look at the translation, or do you look at the translation first, sort of study it a bit more, and then go back to the scene to sort of like, I know, I understand what's being said now. I understand like the context of the words.
I mean, I think the way this film is shot and the way the film is written, I think even if you cannot understand anything, and I felt like even if we wouldn't have subtitles, you can grasp the feeling, the underlying feeling of it. So not understanding it, of course, sharpens the view for expressions and for the unsaid things, which also I find something. I did some editing and documentary films in languages that I do not know, and what I always found really interesting is that somehow you understand what the footage is about and what is happening without really understanding everything. So I feel it also applies here. So an emotion should translate without the understanding of the words that are said. Yes. So but that being said, the character, I mean, all the actresses, they had no idea. They also had to learn this old version, this old German. And there were some, old ladies living in that area, and they rehearsed with the actresses. And so for us, I think it was more about double checking. Do they perform well in this language that is not their first language, and in this language that they just learned for this film and for this scene? I think there was also this aspect about it.
I think that's an interesting point as well, is like, how do they perform with a language they don't understand? But I guess as a performer, it's like that's what the whole rehearsal process is like, an understanding, which that'd be really fascinating to sort of find out more about, and that whole process. But then also, it's an interesting point that you made about working in documentaries in other languages, and I'm sure that probably helped as well, because you're kind of going in blind, but then also, you know, your intuition comes in as an editor, because it's all a visual medium rather than, say, like a book, for example, where the words are extremely important, but with how stuff is being shown on screen and how a scene is going to play out, or how it should be cut, especially like with editing, where like editing is to basically like cut the tension for audiences, so you kind of have to know where to go in and out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I also feel like there is this nice saying, like, don't tell, show. And I feel
Yeah.
in this case, and for this film, it's like, really don't show, feel. And it was the approach from the script, and also the approach that we took in editing, that you really should feel what's going on. So the words are just it's just part of their life, but it's not the inner life. So we need words sometimes to articulate what we feel, but as we do have the voiceovers. But yeah, this deep feeling is created by imagery, is created by the editing, like how do the scenes are connected with each other, and also by the sound and how the characters are interacting with each other.
Again, with something like this, where it is so character driven, and so you kind of, again, there are things where as an audience you probably need to be shown, but then also you kind of want to be told. And then there's so many different sort of aspects as well, especially with something like this. What I'm curious to know about, I've got two more questions. What I'm curious to know about with editing the film, it's also the sort of sound design that's used in the film. Now, I know you're not necessarily 100% involved, but you mentioned about being there for the mixing process. And because this film is set over different time periods, there's going to be so many different sounds involved in the film. How do you go about incorporating that into the edit, and sort of being sort of respectful to other people's work and how they want to present it in the film as well? Because there's going to be stuff like where people walking around the house, there's going to be the sound of wood creaking, or even like the farm animals in the distance, sort of also helping with audience members understand the geography of the place.
We did not stay, or I did not stay, me and Billy, until the end of the mixing. But so the whole conceptual sound design and the whole layout for the sound design was done fully in the editing. So we were working collaboratively. It was like the concept from the beginning to have me and Billy as a junior editor, to have like her fresh perspective all the time and her feedback. So just what we were talking about before, like having 4 different timelines, so many characters, main characters, so many side characters and secondary characters, and so many possibilities to edit the film and to arrange it. So it was so helpful to have her. But she's also a sound designer. She's trained in London. And so we were working on 2 desks simultaneously, and she was collecting sounds, and she was like, with Masha, they were reflecting on what would a black hole sound like, and then Billy was taking sonifications. It's like NASA and ESA, they have like imagery from outer space, and these images would be translated into sounds, and Billy used these sounds and collected these sounds and manipulated them. So, and then we would have this big sound library, and we could use it already in the editing, and the sound was already played a big role in the script already. So you don't often get a script that is so written a way where also the sound is described. So at some points already was written in that you hear like the noises disappear, and a crackling starts. Something like this already in the script, which was a really great foundation for all of us to start working from. So there's, for example, this one scene with Angelica when it's more or less in the last third of the film. She is out in the field, and her father is harvesting with this really big harvesting machine, and she is finding this dead deer in the field. And this scene is, for me, really touching on one hand, but also it shows perfectly how editing of picture and sound is walking hand in hand. So it starts really in a really realistic setting. So you have this sound of the summer and the field and the insects, and you just hear Angelica walking through the field. And then when she finds this deer lying there dead in the field, all the sound slowly fades away, and there's a total silence, like really silence. And then there's just a small wind, like coming onto this, like as a really small sound layer, and it's so effective. And then the scene is getting really, really, really loud with the harvester. So, and I feel like this, we play a lot with how long can an image stand for itself, and what is happening on the sound at the same time. So in this film, all of these sound layers were of course, we already did this in the editing together with Billy, to create this immersive experience, and really to play around with timing and with total silence and with noises and with sounds of nature. And as you just said, like already in the first scene of the film, now with Erica on the crutches in the hallway, so we tell this whole house just on the sound layer. So you hear pigs outside, you hear that the house is not too full, because you can't really understand it on intellectually, but you feel the house is kind of empty, which is of course because it's war, and it's most of the people are participating in the war. So the house is kind of empty, and it feels like a bit abandoned, and like Erica there sneaking into her uncle's room. So it had a big role for us in the editing.
I think we sometimes forget how important sound is, just because it's there when you're watching films, and it's something that it's quite interesting and to listen to and hear, and how it's used. And I do I find it interesting as well, just how it's like you've mentioned that the part of the sound is also written in the script. So the idea of how in your mind sort of germinating and thinking like, okay, so if we do this scene, it's going to need to sound this way, but then how can we play with that sound already whilst we're filming it? We can already know that I'm going to put like the sound of farm animals over there, and creaking over here, and how how empty the house is going to feel because we know that we're set in a certain time period.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I feel that also because it was so important. The script had this really notion of it. It was supposed to be really hot and really like this feeling of an endless summer that was intended in the script. And then while shooting, it was the worst weather ever. So it was raining all the time. There was like thunderstorms. It was so cold. And to even though it was summer, to create this feeling of summer and to create this feeling of, we all know this, we are sitting outside and we're having a glass of wine, and perception just is funny because sometimes crickets, they become just so loud, louder than they ever were. But yeah, it's just this feeling and this capturing of feelings, and that the summer was that bad that you couldn't hear any insects, and yeah, that we had the chance to recreate the summery feeling throughout the tone was important as well.
I think that's the thing as well, like the idea of like the heat and just the constant sort of feel of it. And funny how you do mention like when it's too hot, you won't hear insects or you won't hear birds, or just because everybody's like seeking shelter from the elements.
Yeah.
And then just to hit you up with my final question, what was your favorite scene to edit?
That's really hard to answer because I really, it's I think it's quite rare, but in this film I really loved every single second of the finished film. But there are some scenes where I feel like it was really hard it was harder to achieve, or yeah, that something was so there's Irm, she is the mother of Angelica in the 1980s, and her sister is Erica from the 1940s, and Erica took her own life in the river. And that her sister took her own life is really traumatic and really haunts Irm until today. But because she's not one of the main characters, we are not diving really into her perspective. It felt so random, and it was not really, yeah, we were not able to grasp her pain, or it was hard to understand what was going on in her. So in the editing, we found this solution that whenever we are with Irm, in most of the scenes, there are kind of small fragments of memories, like small glimpses, like images of her sister, or from the river, or from drowning in the river, that are haunting her, like these haunting images. And we created this in the editing to make her as a character and to make her pain more accessible. And I especially love it in the scene where they are playing a prank on her birthday, and she is sitting in her car, and they parked her car really tightly in between two trees. And she's one of these characters that is like always, she's not understanding jokes, and her husband, the father of Angelica, always wants to make her happy and to make her laugh, but he's never succeeding. So she is really baffled, and she sits down in the car, not knowing what is going on, and the whole village is coming and chanting and singing birthday songs to her, and they open bottles of champagne, and the champagne splashes against the window of the car, and she's just sitting there like frozen. And yeah, then we came up with this idea of, okay, we need to know what is going on with her. So we just see an image of an eel in the water, and then we see her face again, and everyone laughing and singing. And then we see her daughter Angelica, and she noticed that something is kind of with her mother. And then the sound slowly fades away and the crackling starts. And then again, there's another fragment of her sister going into the river. And then we cut back to Irm. and she's just sitting there frozen like a stone. And we cut back to the river, and then Erica's just turning around and looking directly into the camera, and then we leave the scene. And yeah, for me, it was so powerful to see that with this using of these memory fragments, her character suddenly made sense, because it was so hard to access her and to understand her and to really empathize with her. And I feel now I'm always so touched when I see it, because I feel like and I'm also, I loved discovering this principle of these memory fragments.
That's a very solid choice, and I guess in a film like this, where it's probably very difficult to choose from because there's so many, and it's also just especially as an editor, because you're kind of curating the scenes a bit more and sort of playing around with the timelines. But I do like that choice, and again, perfect for the audience to show, not tell.
Yeah.
Evelyn, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Robert.
The Sound of Falling will be out next year. It's currently out in Germany, but it should be out next year in the UK. Go out and watch Evelyn and everybody's hard work. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You take care, and bye-bye now. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.